He is the winner of the district evaluation and table topics competition. He's the 2007 to 2008 Division E Toastmaster of the Year. He's a past District 100 director, qualified speaker in District 12 and 100, and he's past Founders District and 100 chief judge. David's got nearly 50 years in the aerospace industry, 20 years coaching high school, college, and semi-pro football. He's a 40-year Toastmaster in Club Number 2, which is the second oldest Toastmaster international club. Today's speaker, David, will be sharing his insight on why public speaking is universally the #1 fear for everyone. How does Toastmasters exist, and why Toastmasters is the best solution to overcome that fear. So let's hear it for David Flores with his speech titled, "The Fear of Public Speaking." The fear of public speaking, David Flores.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and our most welcome guest. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I'm getting used to doing that now that we're on international through the online format. Yes, the fear of public speaking. Actually, I've always been somewhat confused or somewhat intrigued by some of the things that people do for fun. As an example, these are things I probably would never do, but I admire those who have the courage to do so. I've seen videos of people getting into a still cage on a boat and submerging themselves in the water just so they can observe killer sharks underground on the water with them. Now, to me, that seems like an interesting thing to do for fun, but I would be very leery wondering just how strong that cage is and what if something goes wrong and now I'm stuck in the water with sharks. That's something I would never do. Another thing I find interesting is that some people that they like to do, and maybe you've done this yourself, but I probably would never do it, is they would get in a perfectly good airplane, strap a parachute on their back, and then at a high altitude, jump out. Now, mind you, the first thing you got to remember to do is to pull the rip cord. And when you're up in the sky, pulling something and saying rip doesn't sound good to me. Excuse my dogs in the background. Let me quiet them real quick. My apology, my security team at work. So anyway, pulling the ripcord, having your parachute open up and gliding to the ground. Now, I think about that. A parachute is a thin fabric held up by a bunch of strings strapped to your body. I'm not sure, but the idea of something that thin and that light holding me up and falling to the ground, it's not something I would encourage anybody to do. A lot of trust involved. But the one I really find the most unusual is individuals who will take themselves on a high platform, tie a large elastic band around their ankles, and plunge to the ground, falling towards the floor of the building or wherever they're at. Now, I'm not sure if you realize it, but I know there's many times where I have grabbed something that's elastic, like a rubber band, which to me, a bungee cord is nothing but an oversized rubber band. And when you least expect it, when you're trying to use it, it breaks. To me, I can never understand why anybody would do that, but they do. Play with sharks, jump out of an airplane, jump off a high platform with a rubber band tied to your feet. Now, the unusual thing about this is that if something goes wrong, well, it was fun while it lasted, as you might say. But at the same time, I say to myself, why do they do it? They enjoy it so much, it is so dangerous. There's no fear involved in that. But what I don't understand is when you ask them, individuals, would you consider standing in front of a group of individuals, strangers that you don't know, and talking about it? And that fear? Oh, no. I'd rather jump out of an airplane than talk to a group of people all the time. And I get to wonder, what is the difference between public speaking and doing those particular hobbies. Well, when you're underwater with a shark, you don't see that anybody's really watching you. When you jump out of an airplane, you can't tell who's looking at you. Everybody looks like a small ant down on the ground. And jumping with a bungee cord, the only thing you see is the ground accelerating towards you and hoping that rubber band doesn't break. So you never really get an idea what people are doing or seeing around you. But when you stand up on a stage in front of a group of individuals and you can see their eyes are looking directly at you, makes all the difference in the world. And I think that's where some of the fear factor comes in, because you realize that people are, in fact, watching you. Now, you've been to wonder, well, why is the big deal? What is it that causes us to be so fearful of that? And I think if we look at it as far as human beings, we understand one thing, that we are creatures of habit. And our habits often come formed by how much things happen around us, our experiences in life, and our environment. As a habit, if we do something that we enjoy, we have a tendency to do it again. But if we experience something that is negative, we'll either shy away from it or not engage in it again. So what happens in life that causes us such fear of public speaking? And I'm sure for everyone, it's a different thing. But I'm going to give you an example of what happened to me as a young boy, which started me on the path of not wanting to be a public speaker or even think about speaking out loud to anybody. I remember one incident in particular when I was young in elementary school. And the teacher started the class with, I'm going to ask a question. And the person who gets that question right gets a prize. So we're all in classroom sitting there, and the teacher starts to ask the question. And my friend sitting next to me, boy, he was excited. He jumped up immediately as soon as the question was asked and started raising his hands, says, pick me, I know. And well, teacher can't ignore him, so she gives him a chance to answer the question. So he stands up very proud. He's ready to start being the star attraction in the classroom and blurts out the answer. Then the room goes quiet. And the teacher says, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, but that is the wrong answer. Being kids as we were, all started to giggle and laugh and smirk at the young man. Well, that didn't go very well with him. And I remember watching him sit down and basically bury his head in his desk, thinking, oh my goodness, how embarrassed he was. And the teacher told kids and excoriated us for saying anything, but it was too late by that point. And myself sitting next to him thought, I'm not making that mistake. I'm never going to speak up for any reason whatsoever. It's not good. Bad things can happen. So I thought that's kind of where I got my first indoctrination, that public speaking or speaking out in front of a group of individuals was not that much to do, much fun to do. If you go wrong, things can go wrong. But you think as young kids, that just happens. But as you get older, you realize that there's a lot of things that are negative about public speaking. You'll be sitting in a group of friends or classmates as you get older, and you may hear people say something, and your friends will make comments and they'll say things, well, can you believe they said that? Seriously? What's he thinking? What's she thinking? And then it goes on and on. Then as adults, you would hope it change. It doesn't. We sat in groups of adults. We've heard people say things, and we've made comments about it. Other people make negative comments about what they said or disagree with what they have to say. So we're always being influenced by these negative thoughts of, well, the person saying things or somebody up there speaking can get some negative input about them. And even though maybe they not know what it is or who they are or saying it, but it's still, you hear that negativity that goes on when somebody's publicly speaking. We've seen in our own history here that people have lost jobs because of things they said, either inadvertently or didn't flow well with what people wanted to hear. So the idea of speaking in front of a group of people or even saying things in our mind has been negative all these times. In fact, there's an old quote that I believe it was Mark Twain that stated that it's better that people think you're a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. So with those things in mind, it's no wonder public speaking is something that we all fear. The idea of being embarrassed in front of a group of individuals that we don't know, and maybe some that we do know, will hold anybody back. So you begin to wonder, well, then what happens? What is it that makes Toastmasters exist? Why do people go into Toastmasters or get involved with Toastmasters? Well, I think over time, a lot of people look at how they're going in life, and we all do this. Sometimes we reassess what we're doing. how things are going. Perhaps we're not totally satisfied with what happens on our jobs or work. We've probably seen people being promoted to positions that you would thought, maybe, well, I could have taken that position. Why didn't they consider me for the position? Or you see people doing certain things that you admire, but it just, you wonder why they get picked and you don't get picked. So oftentimes you think, what is it that I have to do to be recognized and noticed, or be able to have more confidence in what I'm doing? Well, some people say, maybe I just get more education. If I have more education, I'll know more and I will get picked to do certain things. Or they'll say, with more experience on the job, perhaps I'll get an opportunity to advance or move ahead. But the problem with that is that's what everybody can do. Everybody else can get an education, additional education. And if you got hired in after the person that's got the promotion, well, they got just as much or more experience than you have. So you get to thinking, what is the one thing that you can do to separate yourself, to be recognized and to be noticed for what you accomplish or what you want to do? And that is your ability to represent yourself, to speak for yourself, to be able to articulate what you want to say or do. Public speaking is an art form of communications. And it's the one thing that only you can do for yourself. No one else can do it for you. You're not going to look successful, or nobody's going to consider you to be successful if you have someone else speaking for you. You've got to be able to speak for yourself. But understanding that it's not just something you get up and start talking. Speaking is an art. Communication skills is an art. You'll see oftentimes people who advertise for learn to be a public speaker or learn to be a great speaker, and the weekend seminar for $2,000 to $3,000. And fine, you can learn the tips. They say learn the tips of professional speakers. Well, learning the tips is one thing, but learning public speaking is not something you get out of a book. It's something you have to do on a regular basis. It's a lot like somebody who is a professional pianist who practices and practices and practices, and then every once in a while they do a concert, become a concerto pianist. It's an art form that they developed over time and practice on a regular basis. The idea of being a star athlete, a marathon runner who practices weekly, hundreds of miles a week to develop the skill to endure a long distance run. They only run one race a month or so, but still they'll spend weeks upon weeks practicing for that one race. And that's the same thing with public speaking. It's a skill that you can develop yourself to the highest potential that you can. Not everyone will be the top speakers all around that we see or might want to admire and seen, but you have the ability to develop yourself to the highest potential. And what I always say to people, don't look at others as your level of what you want to accomplish. Look at yourself of what you want to accomplish. Be the best that you can be yourself. You'd be surprised how much further you can get. Remember, the number one fear among people worldwide is public speaking. Now, think about it just through Toastmasters terms. We have clubs all over the world. We're 144, 145 nations, and we have thousands and thousands of clubs. Our growth right now is probably just under 300,000 members worldwide. Now think about that, 300,000 people in a population world of the billions shows you how much fear it is. And for you to separate yourself from the billions, this is the one skill that you can utilize and develop. But only those who are willing to do what others are not willing to do is what makes the difference. You can make changes in your life, but you have to accept that you need to change. I often say, if you want things to get better, you've got to get better. And this is the one skill that will carry you through no matter what you do in life. This is a skill that's going to help you separate yourself from the masses, that you can get recognized and be thought of. Now, the key thing, though, is that you have to understand that unless you make changes in yourself for the better, things aren't going to change. It's much like what Einstein says. If you continue to do the same things over and over again and expect a different result, it's not going to happen. So you need to take the challenge and overcome that fear to get out there and practice the skills of public speaking. And ideally, that's why Toastmasters has existed for almost 100 years now, because we offer that opportunity for people to meet on a regular basis to continue practicing that skill and practicing that skill. It's something that people can do at their own pace, but at the same time, like anything else, there's no real magic, fast, easy way to do something. Anytime you develop skills, it's because you practice on a regular basis. And we know that if you have certain hobbies or certain things that you've done over the years, that the more you do it, the better you get at it. And it's as simple as that. The more you do something, the better you'll get. And that's why we have the Toastmasters program. It's a regular meetings that we try to accomplish all the time to help you develop that skill and continue to practice and develop it. The one thing you always want to do is have a place where you can work on what you're trying to develop, your skill of public speaking. It's not something you do for a little while and say, I've got it, now I'm done, I know what I'm doing. Because like anything else, what you don't use, you lose. If you stop, you regress. Much like a tree, once you stop growing, you're starting to die. That's the same thing with public speaking. Your skills have to be honed on a regular basis. So never stop doing what it takes to be at the top of your game. It's always best to be prepared to do something at a moment's notice, and rather than have to go back and restart again. So that's why Toastmasters has existed. And that's why the program is successful as far as helping people develop that particular skill so that you can accomplish things in life that you never thought you could accomplish and be recognized for what you do. Now, I know I talk about all the things you can do for yourself, but I want you to understand one thing. This is a powerful skill to have, not only for yourself, but for others. I mentioned there's only a few people in the population that have the courage to develop this skill. And oftentimes you may find yourself having to use that skill, not just for yourself, but for others. Think about it. There's different things that go on in life on a regular day, everyday basis that people are talked about. I know one of the things we see oftentimes is in the school districts where there's people having meetings in the school board and people are afraid to speak up because they don't want to embarrass themselves. But for us who have the courage and the confidence to do so, then we will do it. So not only for yourself are you developing this skill, but you can develop it to help others, not just yourself. So with that in mind, always think about how important it is for you to develop this skill for yourself and for others. Now, I want to leave you one final thought regarding that skill. Think about where we are in this country. Almost 250 years ago, this country was born, and we developed what we call a Bill of Rights. And a Bill of Rights allows us two things that we enjoy. That's the ability to gather as a group without fear of people overseeing us and what we're doing, and the freedom of speech. The freedom of speech is one of the most important values that we have in this nation. So when you think about it as a Toastmaster, not only are you developing things for yourself, but you're honoring those individuals who now and in the past and in the future will defend those rights that we have and enjoy. So never take for granted just the simple fact that we are becoming public speakers and developing our speaking skills, but think about it with the things that we do, the freedom we have to do it. It's not a universal freedom for everybody across the globe. There are places in the world, if you say something, it could be detrimental to your life overall. So honor those people who sacrificed and made the ultimate sacrifice to give us these freedoms. Remember, what we don't use, we lose. So besides being a better and version of yourself, developing the most important skill you can have for yourself, but at the same time, honoring those who gave us the freedom to enjoy an organization like Toastmasters International. Madam Toastmaster.
Awesome. All right. Join me in a